Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole, and we have a very special show for you today. Today's conversation is going to be a powerful one, a meeting of purpose, discipline, divine alignment, and two deeply intentional people. Together, they are the voices behind the Imagine Faith Talk podcast, and they're also co-authors of a new book just come out called Designed to Succeed, a faith-driven blueprint to building the life you were created to live. We're going to say that again in a minute. And in this book, they invite us to rethink everything we've been taught about success. So let me tell you a little bit about these two gentlemen. Kevin Olusola is a Grammy Award-winning artist known around the world as the groundbreaking cellist and beatboxer of the infamous a cappella group Pentatonics. You know them. He is a creative force who has redefined what it means to merge classical expertise with modern sound. But beyond the stage, Kevin is a thinker. Don't we love thinkers? Yes. He is a seeker, and he is someone deeply committed to living a life led by faith. Alongside him is Donovan D. Donnell, a transformational voice in the world of personal development. He is a life coach, an author, and a visionary whose work challenges people to build lives rooted in truth, intention, and self-mastery. Together, their platform and new book challenge us to think about what happens when excellence meets alignment, when our ambition is guided by faith. Don't you want to know? Aren't these things that you want to think about? Yes. So this is a conversation about becoming not just successful, but whole. So please join me now in welcoming Kevin Olusola and Donovan D. Donnell.
There we are.
Hello, there we are.
What's going on, Harriette?
Oh, I'm really excited to talk to you all. I've been aware of your book for a couple of months now and just trying to find the right timing for us to talk. So first of all, how did you come to this incredible title that does make you kind of pause and reflect, just even looking at the title of the book? How did you come to that?
Ooh, that's a Donovan question. Donovan, you are so good at answering this question, and I love to speak about the book.
So, because I love the book. I think the best way to explain this is that Kevin and I were deeply under the impression that this generation really needed to tap into their authenticity, but we wasn't really sure how to help them understand that authenticity is not something you go out and try to discover on your own. It's already embedded within you. It's in your design. But that wasn't quite deep enough to just talk about the authenticity and how to succeed as who I already am. We had to get more explicit. And so Designed to Succeed really came about helping people understand that it's not just authenticity. It is about being connected to your creator. He put this in you. He knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And there was something about the unique way that he made you that is going to help you to experience success the way you were intended to. And that is why the title is really dealing with these two big ideas that I think that our generation struggles with: design, your authenticity of your design, and also success. And so how both of those have already been defined by God. And if you just have that relationship with him, you start to understand both of them. And then it helps you really understand what your true north is as far as fulfilling your purpose and ending up in different spaces that truly fulfill you, not just impress other people.
So this notion of success, and you all write about it a lot in your book. I mean, it is the driving force in America for sure. And I would say in the Western world, you're always reaching, you're always striving to reach something that is not where you are. It's somewhere else. Success is over there somewhere, right? And the stakes are high, especially in this age of social media where people are fronting and showing whatever the perfect life is. Success seems to be elusive. What is your definition of success, and how does it differ from this notion that people have of this other thing that's over there somewhere?
Oh, that's so good. One way we define it in the book is doing exactly what we're called to do, but being who we are doing it and finding enjoyment and fulfillment in it. What I love about that is that we're not defining success by any worldly rubric. We're not defining it by Grammy Awards or Forbes magazine. We're defining it by how we feel like success should feel like, because it's not based off of these peaks or valleys that sometimes we go through. It's defined on a daily trajectory where you can feel successful doing what you're supposed to do, because sometimes those peaks come, sometimes they don't. So can you be happy and fulfilled and feel the enjoyment of doing the thing that you're called to do on a daily basis? Because sometimes when those things come, now you can enjoy them. But the thing that I enjoyed the most was the journey and the process. And most importantly, doing the process with the one who created me. So I know he is behind me every single step of the way.
So there's a whole lot to unpack in what you just said, and because what I appreciate in watching your podcast and reading your book is it's very practical. You all are very practical. You know, you're talking about these kind of spiritual, lofty ideas, but in the real world, kind of how do you do it? So Kevin, I want to go back to a bit about your story for starters, because you are the child of immigrants, you're first generation. Every first generation household I'm pretty much aware of, the children are supposed to be doctors or lawyers or usually those two. Maybe there are a couple other things. You were supposed to be a doctor.
You're not wrong, Harriette.
I know. and you are not a doctor. You are a beatboxer. Hello. And there's a story in the book where you talk about your daddy, like, excuse me. So
for sure.
Address, like, there's this sense of what you're talking about, not being leashed to a definition of success that somebody else gave you. And also, just because I think your story is a very poignant one, I'd like for you to tell us how your parents grew up, what the sacrifices were they made, what their intentions were for you, and how you have navigated that.
Oh, great question. Thank you so much for being willing to talk about that, because I think there's a lot of people in this country, right? We're a land full of immigrants, and a lot of our struggles, I think, are very, very similar. You know, my dad came to the United States from Ibadan, Nigeria, and he was somebody who grew up in a one-bedroom mud hut with his 4 brothers and his parents, right? My mom grew up very poor in Grenada in the Caribbean. And they came to this country because they wanted a different opportunity for their kids, opportunities that they knew they couldn't get from where they grew up and where they're from. And for them, that success looks like, in a lot of ways, you know, the white picket fence, the dream home, these things that showcase financial stability, which I fully understand, especially coming from where they're coming from. And so for me to be able to decide, you know, as I'm growing up, of course, I definitely wanted to do medicine. I thought it was something that would be very fun for me, especially as I saw my father, who's a psychiatrist, and my mom, who's a nurse, how they got to affect and serve so many people. But as I got into college, I realized I felt like God was leading me into a path that I didn't actually want to do. I didn't want to do music. He had to call me into that. And the reason I say that is because growing up, I think a lot of people I felt had expectations of me being a musician. They would say, oh, you should be an R&B singer, or you should be a rapper, or you should do something like that. But I said that, you know, when it comes to us as a people, we are so varied in our abilities, our talents. We're so diverse, right? And I love classical music. And I also loved academics. And so I wanted to show, I'm going to take the road less traveled. I want to take the road where our faces aren't necessarily seen all the time. And that's in medicine. And so when God was like, I know you think that, but I'm actually calling you to music, I was like, I don't know how my parents are going to deal with this. I mean, they literally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to send me to the best boarding schools. I went to Phillips Academy in Andover, Mass, to send me to Yale for undergrad. One of the things that I finally learned on that journey.
I'm just imagining your parents, like, for real.
Oh my good. Like, you can't believe. Like, I remember my father, whenever I graduated college, and I actually talk about this in the book, he came to my 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 apartment complex that my bandmates were all living in. And we didn't have that much money. I remember rent was $632.50 in Los Angeles. And that is nothing when it comes to accommodations in LA. And he came to visit me, saw where I was living, didn't say much. We hung out. And then he flies back to Kentucky. But before he boarded his flight, he sent me this text that basically said, I have spent so much and invested so much. I know where I came from. And to see you living here, this is not the life that I ever imagined for you. Please reconsider. And I finally realized that honoring God's path for you doesn't necessarily mean dishonoring your family or your ancestry. I finally realized that when I said, Dad, I appreciate everything you've instilled in me. And I still believe in every single value that I've learned from you. It's just that I feel like God is asking me to take those learnings and utilize them on a different path. So that doesn't mean I'm disowning anything that you've taught me or throwing that out. I'm actually utilizing it in this path. And then literally like fast forward a couple years later when we're winning our second Grammy and he sees us performing with Stevie Wonder, That's the Way of the World for Earth, Wind, and Fire. And then we give, with Stevie Wonder, the Song of the Year award to Ed Sheeran for Thinking Out Loud. I sit back down next to my father, and he looks at me and goes, "Oh, congratulations on your Grammy. Are you going back to medical school now?" And I'm just like, "Dad, did you not just see what happened?" But he let out the biggest laugh, and he said, "I'm so proud of you, son. I see what you're doing. I'm so happy that you followed the path that you felt like you were supposed to follow." So it all came full circle. But again, it comes from knowing that just because I honored God's path for me did not mean I had to dishonor my family.
And I want to add to that because that's a wonderful story. And, part of the reason that you're here is because we know Pentatonics. We're aware of your group. You have, in this culture, come to a very high level of acclaim, which we appreciate. And it gives you an opportunity to have a platform to tell people, look, here's a way to live. Maybe not what you think. But I also want to amplify the point that even if you hadn't won a Grammy, because most people don't, for people out there who are making a choice that may be different from what their parents want for them, but it's what their heart tells them, what is in alignment with God, but maybe not what their parents want. You don't have to win a Grammy. You don't have to win an award. You don't have to become the most successful in whatever the field is to live in alignment with God's will, right?
I agree. I fully agree. Because again, God doesn't measure success by the rubrics of the world. Right. He has a completely different rubric, right? One of my favorite verses is that I don't judge the outward appearance. I judge the heart. I judge if your heart is aligned to me. And some of the things that God may have you, that he's called you for, may not have those awards. But at the end of the day, as I believe, when we finally see our God and our King, he's going to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant," because what you did in the way I've called you to do it helped someone else in need, helps people see who I am. And now you've got friends here that weren't going to be here unless I sent you there. Yes. So at the end of the day, that's what I think God's rubric of success is. There's an eternal perspective that we try to talk about in this book. You are designed for the success that God has for you. And if we trust him, he also says, "I will provide for every single need that you need." I know what you need. Am I not God? Like, I know. Like, I see all things. So trust me. And so that's I think our main message in this book.
That's beautiful. So Donovan, I want to pivot to you. You've got some really interesting stories in this book about your journey. And just as my career started in the fashion industry.
Okay.
So as I read about you and learn about you, I see that there was that moment when you were modeling, and you had been invited to model. Prior to that, you had been an exotic dancer.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you were in an interesting trajectory trying to find your way. You also described way before that, you were into fitness, which got you to the place where people would even want to see your your physicality as something that was beautiful. There's a story in this book that resonated so much for me because men are rarely acknowledged for having to deal with what we could call Me Too, having to deal with being potentially sexually assaulted or certainly put in compromising positions. Usually we think it's women. I've talked to many people about this particular space, including in recent days, and I've been asked, please amplify the voices of men who have faced this and what they've done. And you share a story in the book. I'd like for you to tell a bit about your story, including what happened to you and how you were able to stand up for yourself.
I appreciate you calling it an interesting journey. That was a very kind way. I was traveling down the valley of the shadow of death, not being the light. For sure. I was the one in the shadows, but I'm grateful. And I have to thank God for everything that he did to ensure that I found my way back home, because that was nothing but his grace and mercy. But when it comes to these situations, I do, share one of them in the book, but I know other men, and we've all been in those like Me Too situations or those compromising situations, but it's not manly to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a masculine thing to go and tell, because you're a man. You know what I'm saying to you? Nobody can overpower you. You should have done something about it, and I think my reason for talking about it is because there's a weight that is, I work out, I go to the gym, I can lift heavy weight, but there's a different kind of weight that a man carries in his hopes and his desires that causes him to compromise in situations like that. And that is,
Donovan, let me just pause for 1 second, because I'm so intrigued that I didn't tell folks where we are. Family, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking to Donovan and Kevin and just fully immersed in their story. They have a wonderful new book that does go in talking about faith and how faith really can lead us to the path of righteousness, right? And so we appreciate you. So Donovan, please continue.
I love the fact that you caught up in this story, in this interview. That means that we're all present. It's happening.
Present.
So the fact that we have this weight that we carry, and I call the weight like just trying to be a man, be the protector, be the provider. And if we're not careful as men, then we become opportunists and we start compromising in various ways that are very unnecessary, now that I know, in order to be the one that can be the breadwinner, that can be the protector, that can be the provider, and whatever it takes, it takes. And that's kind of what we're taught. Now, for me, looking at that through the lens of using my body as a tool to bring in income, to bring about notoriety so that I can leverage that to bring about more income, it's not something I was trained on how to engage with. And so it was really in person, in the moment. How deep is your conviction right now? Had I not been raised in the church, had I not had a grandfather who was a pastor, had I not had a mother who was a prayer, and had I not had friends who also were Christians, who were in the word and would bring it up, I don't think in the moment anything would have rose up inside of me to help me push back even the little bit that I did. The story, I'm not sure how deep we go into this story, but before I quit being a male exotic dancer, I was on the verge of changing my dance name to Diablo. That's how slippery the slope was. And there was other things I was considering doing as well, because in that dark world, all of us, we all know each other. The call girls, the prostitutes, we all know each other. We're all friends because it's all in that realm. And the enemy is patient, and so from being in college where photo shoots and photographers try to cross a line and get you to do a little bit more, me trying to do these calendars, me trying to get to New York Fashion Week, and it's always a little bit more. And they have these great stories about how the greats who've done it have compromised, and I can't verify if those stories are true or not, but they're saying this is a path that you have to take all the way to being at the club and understanding that your compromise is connected to your cash flow. And, it's like, well, who do I tell and what would I tell if I'm the one making these decisions? But there is a form of protection that I try to offer, men who are in that world through education of understanding why you don't compromise when it comes to your identity. And just to let them know they're not alone when I say, hey, I know the weight. I know what you ultimately trying to accomplish. I know that it seems honorable. But I also want you to know that God already designed a way for you to achieve that without selling your soul in the process, without compromising your body in the process. And I don't, again, because it's not spoken about a lot, it is the subject that is dear and passionate to me. And hopefully it'll come up in one of my projects I have coming up next year.
And I appreciate your being so transparent about it, because again, men don't usually talk about any of this stuff. I mean, it doesn't often happen. And you write in the book, I think this sort of juxtaposition where it was your grandfather who was the minister, correct?
Yes.
And you would make all this money and then go to church, and you were tithing because you were taught you had to tithe. So you're tithing your dollars.
My glitter money. Yeah.
Glitter money. So you were still following the principles that you had been taught.
Yeah.
And the money is coming from this dubious place. And so in your case, it is exotic dancing. For other people, it is selling drugs or whatever. I mean, many other activities that maybe don't really align with your spirit that people do in order to earn $1.
Yeah.
And so for people listening who might be caught in a situation like that, where even if it's not dishonorable, but it's just something that doesn't reach your spirit, how do you pivot? I mean, like Kevin, you described what happened for you, but what are you all suggesting to people that they can do to pivot when they realize this is not working?
You know what? I want to say that I love how you reference back to our podcast and how we try to become very practical. Praying and fasting are great, and reading your word is great. And sometimes that can be so big of an idea to understand. You're like, but who walks me through it? The best way I can tell you to approach the situation is stay checked in with yourself. We have a Sabbath that we take. And some people do it, once a week, sunset on Friday to sunset on Saturday. We suggest that you find any time, if it's a half a day or a full day per week, where you really check in with your creator, because it's not until we pause and have a real good look at the life that we're living that we begin to connect with ourselves and see where we're really dissatisfied, to see where we're really feeling out of alignment, to see where we're really feeling the conviction. But the work of the enemy is to keep you so busy that you're numb to convictions, that you're numb, that you don't really see what you're doing to yourself until it's too late. But this weekly check-in that we tell people, if you're journaling, if you're praying, if you're just going out in nature, just connecting with God and saying, hey, help me to see what I don't see. If there's one question.
That.
Yeah.
I love this. And actually, see, we are really in sync, because the next thing I was going to ask you about is about this notion of Sabbath.
Yeah.
And from a context, like when I was growing up, stores weren't open on Sunday, and I'm not 100 years old, but I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Stores were not open on Sunday. Everybody went to church. If you were Christian, Jews, it was Saturday. But whatever your religion was, you were in alignment with that. The whole world of commerce was in alignment with having a day of rest. And now it's almost you're almost looked upon as if you are an underachiever if you are unwilling to work every single day, every single moment. And I am going to claim that I am guilty of that sometimes. As a producer of content, sometimes I'm working around the clock. But I want to tell you, I was working with a group of people a couple years ago. The founders are both Jewish. And there was a startup. We were hauling, working. And every Friday night, everything stopped. It was Shabbat. and I was invited to a Shabbat dinner, and it was a beautiful experience. I'd heard of it, but I had never gone. And I witnessed this woman who was a power broker worker pause everything. And everybody gathered, paused, everybody shared in prayer and in blessings for each other and the universe. And it was a rejuvenating experience. And you write about this in the book. And Kevin, you even describe at a certain point, you were getting busy on a project and you told your wife, well, maybe, I think it was you, Kevin, where maybe I can't honor the Sabbath because I'm busy. Can you address that? And then just the importance of being in alignment with Sabbath?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so actually, funny enough, the project that you're talking about is Donovan and I's project with our friend Core, Imagine If They Talk podcast.
Right.
Because during that time, I Sabbath Sunset Friday to Sunset Saturday every single week without fail. And it's been such an amazing practice that allows me to, like you were saying, slow down and try to not just honor God, but honor family and honor myself and honor nature and just be one with my creator. And during those times, I love doing things when it comes to working for God or working for the gospel. So we were producing these podcast episodes even during that time. And it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to do things that I think is uplifting God. But my wife said, hey, I appreciate that you're doing that during this time, but like, what about our family time? And that's when I said, you know what, we got to figure out how to do this differently, because I still got to honor my family. Like, my kids look forward to the fact that once a week, they know Dad's not going to be thinking about music. He's not going to be thinking about book projects. He's not going to be thinking about anything else except for being with them and being connected to our King. So that's when, I kind of spoke to Donovan and our other producer, Core, and I was like, yo, can we do this at another time? And they gladly understood, because I think we all understand how important that weekly rhythm is.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've both realized that. Donovan, can you talk about the profit margin? Because I feel like this will be a really great context to bring that up, to explain Sabbath a little bit.
Just a quick reference here. When we talk in business about profit is what remains after you deduct what it cost you to get it. And I don't think that a lot of people look at life that way. They look at what they've acquired by working 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they say, here's my profit. But until you deduct the health that it cost you, until you deduct the fracturing of a marriage that it cost you, until you deduct the disconnection from your children, until you deduct the lack of equity you now have in certain friendships, you don't know what your profit is. By the time you calculate all that, you're in the red. And I think that's what we help people understand through the book. Like, honestly, if you really want to be profitable, you have to take into consideration what it's going to cost you to do these things.
Exactly. So I think that's why Sabbath to us is, can I trust God to do more with my 6 than I could ever do with 7
alone? Yeah.
Because I think, as we talk about this, Mike Todd, the pastor from Transformation Church, he talks about this idea of pace of grace, right? I would rather be in God's pace of grace, doing things his way, because that protects me from myself. That protects me from self-sabotage. It protects me from my health going downward, because I'm connected to my King's rhythm and pace of grace. And I'd rather be on a path that was graced for me than a path that wasn't. And so when I come to that, when I think about that 4th commandment, remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. This is a time where God's like, hey, I know how busy your life is. Isn't it amazing that God says, I want to spend real time with you? As my parents always explained it to me, it's a date day with God. That the King of Kings, who's so busy taking care of the billions of people on this earth, upholding the universe and all these different things, says, I want to spend time with you, and you don't have to work to obtain my love. You don't have to work to obtain more. You are already pre-approved for everything I've given to you. So just hang out with me. And I think when I think about it that way, I go, I want to spend as much time with the King, because there are insights that I will get on that during that time, during Sabbath, That's hard to get in other times of the week because my nervous system, my body is in a state of relaxation so I can fully receive what God has for me, so I can be doing what he's called me to do from a place of knowing who I am. And again, that's why we say you're designed to succeed. You're designed for the long haul. You're designed for longevity if you trust his ways of doing things. And we believe Sabbath is an important part of that.
That's beautiful. Hey guys, we are here at Dream Leapers talking to the co-authors of Designed to Succeed, a faith-driven blueprint to building the life you were created to live. And these authors are Kevin Olusola and Donovan D. Donnell. And we're going deep. We're talking about spirituality. We're going into the groove. And when you are in the groove, and that's one of the things that this book talks about, when you're in that space, there's an ease that comes because you're not alone. I think that there's a freedom that comes when you feel that when you're in alignment with the divine. And when you feel it, like you don't feel it all the time, right? It's first of all, it's practice. What I've been taught, like there are two wings of the bird: self-effort and grace. When you put in the effort, grace is always there. But if you don't put in the effort, then it's like this. But if you put in the effort, then God is like, here, come on now, let's do this thing. I in this day and age, though, I talk to a lot of people of all different ages who are struggling, who are afraid, and you talk about fear in your book, who are very much afraid that there isn't enough, that they are not going to be able to survive, that they don't have enough to do whatever it is that they think they are supposed to do in life. And, I think, Kevin, you described the mud hut that your father grew up in. Like, I don't think people who are having this kind of fear right now understand what that's like, or understand, and taking nothing away from whatever they're dealing with, perspective. And how can we stay strong, be clear, find our purpose when we are in a space of erasure? If you're a person of color, you're living in a space of erasure. Fact, not something, it's not conjecture, it's happening. How do we stay strong, find our alignment with the divine, and move forward in faith rather than in fear in times like this?
Donovan, go ahead. Man, I see you ready. You're ready.
So excited about this question, because I think this is why they need the book. The problem is that we think that we're subject to all these prejudices and these issues that this world has that keep us locked in, and we're not. You just need to get connected to something stronger than that. You need to get connected to someone who has more power or influence than your government or than your oppressor. And I think that is where you actually gain true access to the freedom and to the ability to live a fulfilled life. If you think that is the premier thing, then you haven't met Jesus yet. Because once you have an encounter with him, he starts to begin to show you that no weapon formed against you can actually prosper, that in this world you will have many trials and many troubles, but I've overcome every single one of them. And as you understand your assignment and your alignment with God as one of his sons or his daughters, you recognize that you have dominion and power over these things, and that they will exist as a temptation to compromise, but they cannot stop the one who is driven by faith and patience. It is by faith and patience that we inherit the promise. And the Bible tells us to mimic those. It's an example in the Bible of many stories of those who, by faith and patience, overcame a lot of oppression, a lot of discrimination, a lot of racism. But, my background being in the mental health field, it actually starts with what you believe. It comes down to you taking the word of God and saying, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this out. And it never fails. It cannot fail. His word cannot return void.
So Donovan, I want to ask you, even like for you yourself, given what you did in the past and now what you're doing and all this empowerment work, how did you forgive yourself for being in those spaces and doing that work? Because that's it's hard when we do something that we decide, we learn at some point, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. Sometimes it's really hard to say, I forgive you. I love you anyway. I love you through whatever, like being in the valley. Like you said, you were about to rename yourself Diablo. How did you forgive yourself?
Harry, you're trying to bring out the tissue for this one.
I'm about to say, let's go. Let's go there. Let's go right there.
It's not just the club, Harriet. It's the consequences of the life that I lived. It's the abortions as well.
Sure.
And it is, and to not go super spiritual with it, because there's some practical that's needed. It's therapy.
Right.
I did have to go to therapy. I did have to get mentors to talk me through some of those thoughts, because it's hard to believe what God says about you when there's so much evidence showing the opposite because of the choices that you've made. You can't possibly love me. I can't possibly be redeemable. Well, then you read this story in the Bible about someone who, a prodigal son or a Jonah or a David, and you're like, God, please, like, confirm with me through someone that this story is real, that this person in this Bible is real. It's not just a story, that you really did this for this person, that I am also eligible. And I think it is through therapy, it's through having mentors, that I was able to see there was a pathway to my redemption, that Jesus didn't come to save everyone but those sex workers. You guys are exempt. And you'll go to some small groups and some churches where they feel that way. Mm-hmm. Where those people are just, it's a different kind of sin. But again, therapy and mentors really helped you recognize there's a path to redemption for even you. And the more you dip your toe in it, you just experience God's grace and recognize that he's not asking you to pretend to be anything but what you are, because he wants to show you how powerful his love truly is for each and every one of us that he's created.
I'm so glad that you mentioned therapy, because now we live in a culture that is much more welcoming of therapy than it was just a generation ago.
Yeah.
And still, it's really hard to face yourself, to like unmask, no clothes on, looking in the mirror, looking at your soul and going, who am I? And you have a lot of questions in your book that are those kinds of questions, the unmasked questions about who you are, what your purpose is, not from the perspective of, if I do this, I'll make this much money, but more, if I do this, this is how I can be in alignment with God, with the universe, with what I'm supposed to contribute on the planet. I think those are such important questions. And I think that when people have a sense of what they are supposed to do with their life early on, what an incredible blessing. But there are plenty of people who have no clue. I have a daughter who just graduated from college. She does have a clear sense of what she wants to do. She has friends who are still going, shoot, I finished and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, or I didn't finish because I couldn't figure it out. There are people much older who are still going, I don't know. I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
For the people who don't have a clue, for the people who are floundering, what advice can you give to them?
Oh,
Kev, you want to go first?
Yeah. Oh, I will. Absolutely. I love this question because I feel those people. I know what it's like to think, one, you have a whole life plan set out, and then God goes, that's not what I prepared for you. And I'm like, wait, but I've been groomed all my life for this one thing. And now you're telling me to do something where I didn't feel like I was the most talented. I didn't feel like I was the most practiced or skilled. I didn't feel like I had enough of what it takes. This is an open-ended path. I don't know how to pursue an actual musical career. I understand medicine. You do this, then that, then the other, go to medical school, you go to residency, maybe do some research, you're a doctor. So I understand when you feel like, what am I here to do? And what am I here to contribute? The first thing that I think is, one, if you're aligned to your God and your creator, even your educated guesses are blessed. Because if we believe that we have a God who loves us and cares for us and knows what he's called us for, even you trying to step out in faith, because as we believe, faith is the evidence of things not yet seen, but hoped for, even as you take your first educated guess, that is blessed, because he will direct your path, right? That's why it says in the Bible, one of my favorites, I was just teaching my kids this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. That is a promise. So as you take your first educated guess, I have these skills, I have these ideas of what I want to do, I'm going to try this. Trust that God will continuously direct you the whole time. You just have to continuously, as we say, have a daily reflection, and a reflection process that includes the creator. Because as we believe in our book, we talk about success being an equation. Yeah. And we believe success is alignment plus development times faith. Alignment and development, that's the work that you do to have yourself aligned to your creator, and you work on the development with him, to your character, to your skill set, to the way you think, your mindset, the way you actually work and perform. But your multiplier is faith, right? If you look at another part of the Bible, there's this part where it talks about, it's Joshua 1:9. Do not be afraid nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. In that kind of category, there is a context of a domain and a dominion that God has already called you to tackle. So if you're saying, I don't know where the way I'm supposed to go, don't be afraid that if you make the educated guess and you're wrong, that it's all downhill from here. Like, it's okay. Don't be afraid to make the first step, because he's with you every single place that you go, even in the missed steps. He is still with you.
I want to jump in and ask, for people who are in the dark place, who get, like, you're talking about God talking to you. How do they know who's talking to them? I mean, sometimes those voices are not God. Sometimes those voices are not. Sometimes they are the friend on, the neighbor, the whoever, the people who say, of course you should do this thing because it's going to earn you money. Sometimes in the meditation, in the beginning, before you get to that space of clarity, those voices are not necessarily God's voice. And so look, I know that I'm asking you something that is a very hard thing to answer, but
we love these questions, Harriette. This is great.
Very serious about it, because you're saying trust God. God is going to tell you. God told you you were to be a musician. How do you know that was God? And how do people know when God is talking to them? And it's the ego, or it's the, crazy neighbor down the street who's confused? How do you know?
Yeah. Let me jump on this one real quick. You're already in faith, no matter where you are. It's just about where your faith is in. We talk about having faith in God, but if you don't have faith in God, trust and believe you're having faith in something, somebody's advice that you've seen online, some ancestor, some parent, some friend. You're already in faith. What we're saying is that it is the Bible, the word of God, that we want you to try. And they say, well, how do you know if God or not? Like Kevin said, man, once you try it, the fruit will produce the tree will produce a certain kind of fruit. You'll know a tree by the fruit that it bears, is what the Bible says. So again, you're already trying faith in different things. You're trying faith in your logic. You're trying faith in your dreams. Try faith in God's word and then see what it produces. And then that way you can confirm. Because again, faith is the substance of things hoped for. Well, as you try it, that hope thing becomes a reality. And you say, oh, God, I tried your word and it did what it said it would do. And that's how you build a confidence in God's word. But you have to try it. And for those who may be afraid that, oh, I don't know if I should try this or not, you're already trying stuff. We're just saying, give God a chance.
This is a very good point, Donovan. And it reminds me, I have a client, very big executive in the entertainment industry, who told me because of his beautiful partner, he started reading the Bible every day, which was not something that he had done. This guy is immersed in the music industry. And he told me just the other day, my life is changing. Like, wow. I can't even believe what I didn't know. And he said, hey, I used to go to the strip club all the time. That was just what We did. That's how we hung out. I used to do this or that. And he's like, I don't want to do that anymore. It's just like the desire, like washed off of his being, and he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Wow.
And so it's new. It's a new anointing. And so as I'm listening to him, I'm hearing him now as you all are talking, because this is a person, very good person. I wouldn't say that he was somebody who was going down a dark path necessarily, but what he was doing, it wasn't serving his spirit, was sort of washed off by reading the Bible every day and studying every day. That's what he told me.
Harriette, that's a good point. You could be lost in a beautiful place. Just because those who are lost are not always in somewhere that's just agonizing. You could be lost in a very beautiful place. People ask me about the strip club. I'm like, it was everything your flesh could desire, but lost is lost.
That's so good. I also think, like, when I think about this whole educated guess or like try things, like I'll tell you about my experience. Like I didn't hear God say, I want you to be a musician. Like the way it worked out for me, you know, I was in my junior year of college and there was a competition that Yo-Yo Ma hosted. And one of my friends said, why don't you join the competition? And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And she said, look, you have a few hours before your flight is going to leave. Why don't you sit here and just try this recording? So I literally sat with this girl. Her name's Juliet. We did some cello and some beatboxing. And I literally recorded it and just sent it off. Didn't know anything about mixing or mastering or making it sound professional. But then Yo-Yo Ma said, hey, your music is inventive and unexpected. And I got second place. And that was my first inkling, like, that's
Yo-Yo Ma. I mean, this is huge. Wait, let me just get our little break in real quick.
Do you think?
First with Harriette Cole. We have like 3 minutes left. We're talking with Kevin Olusola and Donovan D. Donnell, authors of Design to Succeed, a faith-driven blueprint to building the life you were created to live. Okay, believe it or not, you see how fast the time goes?
Yeah, I saw it. Sure. We're having a good time.
We literally have like 3 minutes left. So I'm going to ask each of you, whoever's blessed to hear you speaking now, what is the message that you want to share with anyone who's in earshot of your voice? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
I know that life can feel very confusing because there are so many inputs coming at you from social media telling you how you should see, from friends, family, all these different places. And I know how unsettling that can feel because you go, I don't even know how to trust myself. We're saying that's okay. We want you to just, as Donovan was saying, take a second and try his word. Start there and start to understand you were designed to succeed. Everything that you have is everything that you'll need going forth if you trust the one who designed you.
Beautiful.
And I will simply say, in this conversation about success, it does come back to purpose. And if you're really trying to identify how to relook at success was from this conversation, stop looking at success as what you can acquire and start looking at success as what you should be doing with what you've already been given. There's a design that you were made and there were gifts you were given already. And success is sometimes properly stewarding what's already inside of you instead of acquiring more. And so that would be my word to everybody listening. Like, spend more time with yourself, become self-aware, spend time with God, identify what you've already been given, and see how you can do the most with that.
And just to follow up, how can people use the book to help them in this journey?
At the end of every chapter. You want to talk about that, Kev? Yeah.
I was going to say, at the end of every single chapter, we have practical questions that I think help you move the needle forward in your life. Questions that are hard to answer because there are things where you're going to have to go deep, right? But it's in that depth. It's in that digging out of who you are that you're going to find who you really are called to be. And so that's why I think after every chapter, go through those and do it with a friend, somebody who might be going through the same thing, or somebody who may have a little bit more clarity, and they can, through that conversation with them, you both can get to a higher place together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This was a very soulful, meaningful conversation for me. I really appreciate you all going all in. Thank you for creating this book and for the work that you're doing and for sharing it with folks who really need it right now. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Harriette.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in. It's been wonderful, hasn't it? Talking to Kevin Olusola and Donovan D. Donnell. You need to check out their book. It is really powerful. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.